The living room, once filled with laughter and warmth, had turned into a battlefield of silence and resentment. Elora sat hunched in the old armchair, her thin fingers trembling as they clutched the edge of a woolen shawl. Her eyes, once sharp and full of fire, were now weary pools of sorrow. She gazed at her 3 grown children, Maya, Jordan, and Lena, hoping for even the smallest sign of tenderness. "Maya," she whispered, her voice breaking, "I do not need much. Just your company, perhaps a little time in the evenings. I feel so alone." But Maya, elegant and calculating, rolled her eyes. "Mother, we all have lives. We cannot revolve around your loneliness. You think we do nothing but wait on your sighs and tears?" Elora flinched. Jordan, tall and impatient, stepped forward, his tone sharp. "This guilt act of yours, it is suffocating. I work every day to keep this house running, and all you do is complain. Do you even realize what a burden you have become?" Lena, the youngest, looked torn. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. Instead, she crossed her arms and avoided her mother's gaze, her silence heavier than words. Elora's breath caught. "A burden," she repeated softly, as though testing the cruelty on her tongue. She stood slowly, her frail body shaking under the weight of their rejection. "I carried each of you in my body. I bled for you. I starved so you could eat. Enough," Maya snapped, her voice cold as steel. "Do not drag us into your guilt-ridden memories. You had your life. Now let us live ours." The room fell into a tense silence. Elora's shoulders sagged. She bent to pick up the faded suitcase by her chair, the same suitcase she had carried decades ago when she first came to this house as a wife and mother. Its leather was cracked, its corners worn thin, but it was all she had left. Without another word, she walked to the door. Her steps were unsteady, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. The siblings did not move to stop her. Instead, their faces hardened with a smug relief, as though a heavy weight had been lifted from their lives. The door creaked shut behind her. Outside, the evening sky bled into twilight, casting long shadows across the street. Elora walked slowly, clutching the suitcase close, her lips trembling as she whispered to herself, "I was never meant to be unwanted." From across the street, a shadow stirred. A stranger watched her every step, his face unreadable, his presence ominous. Elora stumbled. Her suitcase slipped from her grasp. She pressed a hand to her chest, gasping for breath. The world blurred around her as her body gave way, collapsing onto the cold pavement. As darkness closed in, she whispered a single name, one none of her children had ever heard before: Cliffhanger. Her voice broke the silence of the night, a name drifting into the air like a curse waiting to be answered. The house felt strangely lighter without Elora, yet the silence that hung in the air was unsettling. Maya leaned against the marble counter, sipping wine with a smug smirk. "Well," she said, "that performance was long overdue. At least she spared us the endless guilt." Jordan paced the living room, his jaw tight. "Do not pretend you enjoyed it any less than I did. She wanted to chain us down with her misery. We have businesses, reputations, lives to protect. We cannot play nursemaid forever." Lena, curled up on the sofa, hugged a cushion as though it might shield her from the cruelty of their words. "She looked broken," she murmured, her voice fragile. "What if she—" Maya cut her off. "Do not start with that bleeding heart nonsense. She will be fine. Mother thrives on pity." Before Lena could reply, a sharp knock echoed through the hall. Jordan strode to the door and swung it open. A man in a dark suit stood framed by the dim light, holding a thick envelope in his hand. His expression was solemn. "Mr. Jordan," the man said, his tone formal. "I am here on behalf of your mother, Elora." Maya stiffened, the smirk vanishing from her face. "What is this about?" The man extended the envelope. The handwriting on it was unmistakable. Delicate strokes, slightly uneven, yet hauntingly familiar. Alora's handwriting. The name of each child was written on the front. Lena's breath hitched. She left us something? Jordan snatched the envelope, tearing it open with impatient hands. He unfolded the letter, the paper trembling in his grip. The siblings gathered close, their faces lit by the flickering chandelier above. The words were heavy with pain, each sentence cutting deeper than the last. Alora spoke of loneliness, betrayal, and the agony of being unloved in her final years. She forgave them in words, but the sorrow behind each line was unmistakable. "She makes it sound like we murdered her," Maya muttered, forcing a laugh that rang hollow. But then Jordan's eyes narrowed. "Wait, what is this?" he read aloud, his voice faltering. "You have forgotten more than my face, more than my tears. You have forgotten blood itself, a child you cast aside, a truth buried by lies. And know this. Your father was no savior. His name shall be crossed out from the book of love, for he was the reason I lost everything." Lena's hand shot to her mouth. Maya's wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering across the floor. The siblings froze in stunned silence. Another sibling? A forgotten child? Their father's name tainted in rage? The letter trembled in Jordan's hands as the weight of Alora's words settled over them like a curse. Cliffhanger. The sound of footsteps echoed outside the house. Someone was already coming closer. The following morning, tension suffocated the grand living room. The siblings sat in uneasy silence, Alora's letter lying on the coffee table like a venomous serpent none dared touch. Maya paced the room in her silk robe, muttering to herself, while Jordan stood rigid by the fireplace, fists clenched. Lena, pale and shaken, barely touched the untouched breakfast tray. Finally, Jordan broke the silence. "Enough guessing. If Mother wanted to play games, we will end them today." "We meet with the lawyer." At the attorney's office, the siblings entered with an air of defiance, yet their composure began to crack when they saw the thick file marked Alora Grant, Last Will and Testament. The lawyer, a gray-haired man with kind but unreadable eyes, adjusted his glasses as he studied the trio. "I assume you've read her final letter?" he began softly. Maya scoffed. "We read her accusations, yes. Lies written by a woman drowning in bitterness." The lawyer opened the file and cleared his throat. "Then you should be prepared for the truth. Your mother, Alora Grant, revised her will shortly before her passing. Effective immediately, all of her assets, her estate, the family home, bank accounts, stocks, every last possession, will be transferred to a sole heir." The air thickened. "To whom?" Jordan demanded, his voice low, dangerous. The lawyer's eyes flickered toward them with a grave weight. "To her daughter, Anna." A name foreign to their ears dropped like a thunderclap. Lena's voice trembled. "A daughter? But that's impossible. We're her children." "Not all of them," the lawyer replied. "Anna Grant, born of Alora's past, has come forward. Your mother acknowledged her as the one child who never turned away from her. She is now the legal heir." Maya's face flushed crimson. "This is madness. Some fraud is trying to steal what is ours. I want proof, birth certificates, DNA tests, anything." The lawyer folded his hands calmly. "Anna has already presented everything required by law. And there is one more matter." He slid a document across the table. "As of last night, she has filed for immediate possession of the family estate." Jordan's jaw tightened. His voice dropped into a whisper of rage. "She dares?" The lawyer did not flinch. "She does not just dare. She has succeeded. The property no longer belongs to you. Anna is already in town. In fact," he paused, letting the weight of his words hang in the air, "she has already claimed the house." The siblings stared in horror, as though the ground beneath them had given way. Cliffhanger. Back at the mansion, the heavy front door creaked open. A woman stepped inside, her shadow stretching across the marble floor. The mansion, once a symbol of the siblings' pride, now felt like a stage awaiting its final act. The heavy front door creaked open with an eerie echo, and a figure stepped inside. Her presence was quiet but commanding, the kind that made the air shift even before words were spoken. Anna. She stood at the threshold, a framed photograph of Alora pressed against her chest. Unlike the siblings, dressed in fine clothes, dripping with disdain, Anna wore simplicity, a dark coat, worn shoes, and eyes swollen from weeping. Her grief was raw, unfiltered, unashamed. For a long moment silence reigned. The siblings stared, each processing the intrusion in their own way. Maya's lips curled into disdain. Jordan's eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned Anna from head to toe. Lena's fingers clutched nervously at her dress. Anna finally spoke, her voice low but steady. "I am Anna Grant, Alora's daughter." Maya laughed, a bitter sound that cut the air. "Our mother's daughter? How convenient you appear now, when she is gone." Anna stepped further inside, her gaze never leaving them. "I was always here, not in this house, but in her heart. While you turned her away, she turned to me. I did not need her fortune. I needed her love, and she gave it freely." Jordan bristled. "You think you can walk in here and steal everything we built? This home, this life, it belongs to us." Anna's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but her tone sharpened. "This house was never yours, it was hers. And she gave it to me, not out of spite, but because she knew who stood by her in the end." She lifted the photograph of Alora and placed it gently on the mantel. "She told me everything." The words sliced through the air like a blade. Lena swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. "Everything? What do you mean?" Anna turned slowly, her gaze resting on each of them in turn. The nights she cried alone, the years of silence, the cruelty she endured in her own home. She spoke of all of it, and she spoke of you. Maya's jaw tightened, fury flashing in her eyes. Lies, all of it. She was manipulative, weak, desperate. "Stop!" Anna cut her off, her voice trembling with anger and grief. "You abandoned her. You left her to die with tears in her eyes." The room fell into heavy silence. The siblings, for once, had no clever retorts. Anna's final words lingered like a curse. "She told me everything about what you did." Cliffhanger. The chandelier above flickered violently, as though the house itself had chosen sides. In the distance, the phone began to ring, shrill and unending. The days that followed Anna's arrival were filled with venomous arguments, tense silences, and battles waged in whispers. The siblings fought her claim at every turn, but Anna stood firm, armed with Alora's will and her own unshakable conviction. Jordan watched her more closely than the others realized. At first, it was suspicion, scrutinizing every word, every gesture, certain that her grief was a carefully crafted mask. Yet the more he observed her, the more the mask crumbled into something else. Strength. Pain. A kind of beauty born of suffering, raw and untamed. One evening, while Maya stormed through the house with threats of legal battles, and Lena nursed a drink in the corner, Jordan found himself in the study where Anna was reviewing documents by candlelight. The shadows danced across her face, highlighting the sharpness of her cheekbones, the defiance in her eyes. "You sit there as if you already own everything," Jordan said, his voice low, almost daring. Anna looked up, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I do not sit here to own. I sit here to protect what my mother wanted. There is a difference." Her words cut him in ways he did not expect. For a moment, Jordan forgot the anger that had driven him all week. Instead, he saw her grief, the same grief he refused to feel. His chest tightened. "You call her your mother," he muttered, stepping closer. "But where were you when she was raising us? Where were you when she built this life?" "I was the child she was forced to hide," Anna replied, her tone sharp but trembling. "The one she longed for but could not claim. Do not mistake absence for neglect. She loved me in silence while you turned your backs in her presence." Jordan's breath caught. The intensity of her conviction stirred something dangerous within him. It was not hate anymore. It was something far more perilous, something that left him restless long after he left the room. That night, he lay awake, haunted by her words, her face, her strength. The lines between enemy and forbidden desire blurred until they became indistinguishable. The next morning, when the lawyer delivered additional documents, Jordan quietly pulled him aside. His voice was steady, but his heart pounded. "I want a DNA test," he whispered. "On Anna, discreetly. I need to know if she is truly my sister." Cliffhanger. As Jordan slipped the sealed sample into the lawyer's hands, Anna appeared in the hallway, her eyes narrowing. Had she overheard everything? The siblings, cornered by Anna's sudden claim to their legacy, grew restless and desperate. Every room of the house felt like it no longer belonged to them. The walls whispered of their mother's absence, and Anna's presence spread like wildfire, silent, firm, unstoppable. Maya, always the strategist, refused to accept defeat. "If she wants to call herself our sister," she hissed one evening, slamming a glass onto the dining table, "then we will dig into her past until she drowns in her own lies." Jordan leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "And if there are no lies?" "There are always lies," Maya snapped. Her eyes flicked toward Lena, who sat quietly, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "Mother hid something from us. Something big. Anna is proof of it, and I want to know exactly what." The next day, the siblings scoured their late mother's belongings, dragging boxes from the attic and rifling through drawers that hadn't been touched in years. Old letters, photographs, and diaries spilled across the floor like ghosts resurrected. It was Lena who found the first clue, a crumpled envelope hidden inside a sewing box. The handwriting was not Elora's. Inside was a faded photograph, a man with sharp eyes and a familiar jawline, standing close to a young woman who was not Elora. On the back, written in hurried ink, were the words, "For Elora, with all my love, always M." "Who is he?" Lena whispered, her hands trembling. Maya snatched the photo, her lips curling. "A lover! Of course, she had an affair." Jordan's jaw tightened as he studied the face of the man. This does not prove Anna is his child. It could mean anything. Yet his voice lacked conviction. The deeper they dug, the more fragments surfaced. Letters written in passion, hidden receipts, torn journal entries filled with confessions of guilt and secrecy. The truth began to form, a picture of a woman who had lived two lives, one as a wife bound by duty, the other as a lover consumed by forbidden passion. As dusk fell, Maya rummaged through a trunk at the back of the attic. With a triumphant cry, she pulled out a small album, dust coating her fingers. Inside, between pressed flowers and handwritten notes, lay a photograph that froze them all. It was their father, standing beside Anna's mother, his arm around her waist. The resemblance was undeniable. Maya's lips parted in shock, though her eyes gleamed with cruel satisfaction. "So it's true. Father's betrayal runs deeper than we thought." Lena sank to the floor, her face pale. "If this is real, then everything we knew about our family is a lie." Jordan turned away, unable to hide the storm raging in his chest. Forbidden desire, betrayal, rage, it all coiled within him like a snake waiting to strike. Cliffhanger. In the silence, the old floorboards creaked. A shadow moved in the attic doorway. Anna had been listening the entire time. The storm outside mirrored the chaos within the house. Rain lashed against the windows, thunder rolling in the distance. As the siblings gathered in the study, their nerves frayed by Anna's relentless hold over their mother's estate. Maya paced furiously, her heels striking the wooden floor like hammers. "She is nothing but a thief in mourning clothes! We will contest this! We will tear her apart in court if we must." Jordan sat silently in the corner, his eyes shadowed, his thoughts a tangle of forbidden desires and unanswered questions. He said nothing, though his silence burned more than any argument. Lena, fragile and trembling, clutched a half-empty glass of wine. What if we lose? The accounts, the properties, everything is frozen. I cannot even access my trust fund. What if Mother really wanted her to have it all? The lawyer's sudden arrival silenced them. He entered with the same solemn air as before, carrying a thick leather folder. He set it on the desk with deliberate weight. There are stipulations in Alora's will that I had not yet disclosed. Maya narrowed her eyes. Stipulations? Yes, the lawyer said, adjusting his glasses. Your mother added a clause, a condition, if you will, meant not just to divide her wealth, but to test your loyalty to one another. Lena leaned forward, her voice trembling. What kind of condition? The lawyer opened the folder, revealing Alora's handwritten addendum. The ink was shaky but firm, as though written with both love and vengeance. He read aloud, "Should my children turn against one another in pursuit of what I leave behind, they shall lose all claim, not only to their inheritance but to their dignity. For betrayal of family is the greatest betrayal of all. If they choose division over unity, then everything, every last coin, every stone of this house shall remain with Anna, my daughter of loyalty." The words fell like a death sentence. Maya's face twisted with rage. She dares control us even from the grave? Lena shook her head violently. It means we cannot fight her. If we turn on each other, she wins everything. But the room was already cracking. Jordan's gaze flicked to Maya, sharp and accusing. You are the first to betray. Your greed has blinded you since the day she left. Maya snapped, her voice sharp as glass. And you? Always brooding, always siding with her. Do not think I haven't noticed how you look at Anna. The accusation froze the room. Jordan's fists clenched. Lena gasped, covering her mouth in shock. At that moment, the lawyer closed the file and stepped back. His voice was calm, almost chilling. You must decide whether blood will bind you or destroy you. Your mother's curse is in your hands. The siblings stood in silence, their glares poisonous, the storm outside pounding like a drum of war. Cliffhanger. In the midst of their fury, Anna entered the room, her voice cold and unwavering. It is already too late. You have begun to betray each other. The mansion felt like a cage now, its gilded walls echoing with whispers of treachery. The siblings had once lived in effortless luxury, bound together by blood and entitlement, but Alora's curse hung over them like a poisoned crown, and every glance now carried suspicion. Maya was the first to strike. One evening she cornered Lena in the upstairs hallway, her voice a venomous hiss. You think I do not know about your divorce? About the settlement you kept hidden? Do not test me, Lena. If you want my silence, you will side with me against Anna. Otherwise, the world will learn how much of a failure you truly are. Lena's face drained of color. Her hands trembled as she whispered, You would destroy me? Your own sister? Maya leaned close, her eyes glittering. Do not call me sister if you cannot prove your loyalty. Meanwhile, Jordan was unraveling in silence. Nights found him pacing the library, the flicker of the fireplace throwing shadows across his haunted face. Anna's presence consumed him. He told himself it was suspicion, a tactical need to watch her closely. But in truth, it was obsession. The curve of her jaw, the fire in her eyes, the way she carried their mother's grief with dignity. It ignited something in him that he could neither suppress nor justify. He avoided his siblings, hiding his torment, but paranoia spread like wildfire. It all came to a head one night at dinner. The siblings sat around the long oak table, Anna absent but her influence heavy in the air. Maya raised her glass, her tone dripping with mockery. To betrayal! It seems to run in our family like blood. Jordan slammed his glass down. Speak plainly, Maya, she smirked. I see the way you look at her. Do not deny it. Lena's fork clattered against her plate. You cannot mean... Jordan's silence was confirmation enough. The room erupted. Lena, shaking, shouted through tears. Do you not see? This is what Mother warned us about. We are tearing ourselves apart. Just as she predicted. Her outburst was cut short when, in a moment of drunken despair, she blurted out the truth she had sworn to bury. Mother once tried to run away. From him. From Father. She wanted freedom, love, but he trapped her here. That is why she hated this house. The revelation left Maya and Jordan frozen in shock, their carefully constructed identities crumbling. Before they could speak, the shrill ring of Jordan's phone cut through the tension. His face paled as he read the message on the screen. The DNA results had arrived, and they revealed what he had feared, and secretly hoped. Cliffhanger: Anna might not be his sister. The night was suffocating with tension, every corner of the mansion drenched in silence that threatened to explode. Jordan paced his room like a caged animal, the DNA results burning in his pocket. Not his sister. The words repeated endlessly in his mind, reshaping his fury into desire, his guilt into justification. At last he could not resist. He found Anna in the garden, standing beneath the withered oak, her hand resting on Alora's photograph. The moonlight softened her grief-stricken face, and to Jordan she seemed untouchable, almost holy. I need to speak to you, he said, his voice raw. Anna turned sharply, her expression guarded. We have nothing to discuss. Yes, we do, Jordan pressed, stepping closer. I know the truth. The test results. You are not my sister. Her eyes widened, horror flashing in them. What are you saying? I am saying, he whispered, his hand trembling as it reached for her, that I cannot stop thinking about you, not as an enemy, not as blood, but as something else entirely. Anna recoiled, her voice breaking with disgust. You are sick. Whatever lies you tell yourself, they do not erase what you did to her. You abandoned our mother while she cried out for love, and now you stand here speaking of desire? You are no better than him. Who? Jordan demanded, his breath ragged. Your father, she spat, the man who destroyed her. Her words cut deeper than any blade. Jordan staggered back, shame warring with obsession. Anna fled into the shadows, leaving him shaking, broken, and furious. Inside, Maya was busy weaving her own betrayal. She had set her sights on Anna's lawyer, a sharp-eyed man named Dorian. In the dimly lit study, she leaned across the desk, her hand brushing his as she whispered promises and poison. You want power? She murmured. I see it in your eyes. Help me tear her down, and I will make sure you are not just her lawyer. You will be her destroyer. Dorian hesitated, then allowed Maya's lips to brush his. A pact sealed not with ink, but with seduction. Meanwhile, Lena spiraled further into despair. Her glass never left her hand, her eyes glassy as she stumbled through the halls. She muttered to herself about their father, about the cage their mother had lived in. One night, half drunk and trembling, she nearly called the press. Her finger hovered over the phone, whispering, "The truth must come out," before she collapsed in tears. But the greatest blow came from Anna herself. Alone in her room, she opened a locked chest Elora had left for her. Inside lay the diary, her mother's true voice. As Anna turned its pages, her face grew pale. The words told of a betrayal darker than anything she imagined. Elora's tears were not only for abandonment. They were for a love destroyed, a crime hidden, a truth that could shatter everything. Cliffhanger. Anna's hands shook as she read the final lines aloud. Your father murdered the man I loved. The siblings gathered in the drawing room, the diary spread open on the table like a sacred relic. None dared speak at first, the words scrawled in Elora's trembling handwriting pressing down on them like a weight too heavy to bear. Anna stood tall, her face pale but resolute, her fingers resting on the open page. You wanted the truth. she said softly, her voice carrying both sorrow and fury. Now you will hear it. Her eyes swept over the siblings before she began to read. He murdered him. The man who gave me my only true joy. The man who gave me Anna. Your father killed him. He took his life to silence my heart, to bind me to him, to bury me in this house of grief. And I, Elora, became both prisoner and ghost, raising children who could never know the truth. The words fell like daggers. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Lena collapsed into a chair, her sobs echoing through the room. Jordan staggered back, shaking his head as though denial could erase the ink on the page. Anna's voice trembled but did not falter. All this time you thought she was bitter, manipulative, weak. But she carried this alone. She lived with his blood on her conscience. And you abandoned her while she lived in the shadow of a murderer. Maya's eyes blazed with tears. No, it cannot be true. Father was strict, but he was not. He was not a killer. But Jordan, his face ashen, whispered, It explains everything. Why she tried to run. Why she despised this house. Why she gave it all to Anna. The silence that followed was broken by the crackle of fire. The chandelier flickered above them, shadows writhing against the walls. A faint smell of smoke began to drift through the air. Do you smell that? Lena asked, her voice shrill with fear. The curtains near the window had caught flame, sparks licking upward, as though the house itself had been waiting for this moment. Panic erupted. Maya tried to smother the flames with her hands. Jordan dragged Lena toward the door, but the fire spread with unnatural speed, leaping from fabric to wood, devouring the past in furious hunger. Amid the chaos, Anna remained still, clutching the diary to her chest. Her eyes glistened with tears as she whispered, She warned us. She said the curse would follow betrayal. The siblings screamed, smoke filling their lungs, fire surrounding them, and as the house groaned and cracked under the weight of the inferno, a voice seemed to whisper through the flames, soft, broken, and unmistakably Elora's. The curse is not over. The ceiling gave way, the fire swallowed the room whole, and the screen went black. Cliffhanger. The mansion in ruins, the fate of the siblings unknown, only the haunting echo of Elora's final goodbye remaining.